welcome back. In this next dark story, we will be sharing the most haunted places in Wyoming. Let's dive in and explore the dark history, demonic, supernatural, and chilling mysteries in the state. Don't forget to like, share, and please subscribe. Share your experience in the comments. Wyoming looks peaceful from a distance. Endless highways cut across open plains beneath a sky so enormous it makes a person feel small enough to disappear. Snow gathers against forgotten fences. Wind drags itself through empty towns where the windows have gone black and the buildings lean slowly into the earth. But Wyoming is not empty, not truly. Beneath its quiet mountains and frozen roads are prisons where men spent their final hours, listening to the footsteps of death approaching their cells, hotels where guests still wake to voices that do not belong to the living, and wooden hallways where something unseen continues to walk after the doors have been locked. The state's darkness is not loud. It waits, it watches, it presses its face against the glass when nobody is looking directly at it. Some of the stories are documented history. Others are witness reports, legends, and warnings passed quietly from one employee to another. But when the wind begins screaming across the plains after midnight, the difference between a ghost story and a true haunting can become terrifyingly thin. First on the list is Wyoming Frontier Prison in Rawlins, Wyoming. The Wyoming Frontier Prison does not feel abandoned. It feels occupied, opened in 1901. The old penitentiary became a stone container for rage, isolation, punishment, and death. Its walls absorb the voices of more than 13,000 prisoners during its 80 years of operation. Inside were solitary cells, a dungeon, a punishment pole, a death house, an indoor gallows, and eventually a gas chamber. 14 men were executed within the prison's control, 9 by hanging and 5 by gas. Night Darts and Materials report that approximately 200 people died during the prison's years of operation through executions, violence, illness, and the merciless reality of incarceration. Even in daylight, the cell blocks have a suffocating stillness. The air feels too cold. The bars throw long shadows across the floor like black fingers. Every step echoes back slightly wrong, as though another person is walking a few feet behind you, but stopping whenever you turn around. This is not the theatrical darkness of a haunted attraction. This is the residue of real suffering sealed inside stone. Visitors, employees, and paranormal investigators have reported hearing cell doors slam when nobody is touching them. Some claim to hear footsteps approaching from empty corridors, followed by whistles, voices, and the unmistakable sound of someone calling their name from behind the bars. Others describe invisible fingers pulling their hair or touching their shoulders in rooms where they were standing completely alone. There are stories of crying near the old shower area, and wet footprints appearing where no water has run for decades. In the death row section, the fear becomes heavier. Some people describe a pressure in the chest, a sudden wave of anger, and the horrible sensation that something inside the cells is not asking to be released. It is waiting for permission to enter. The prison's haunted reputation does not belong to one ghost. It feels like a crowd, a pack of restless voices trapped together so long that they have become something darker than individual spirits. And if you stand in the death house after the building goes quiet, you may hear the metal bars tremble softly in the dark, as though someone on the other side has finally realized that you can hear them. Next, the Historic Plains Hotel in Cheyenne, Wyoming. The Historic Plains Hotel opened in downtown Cheyenne in 1911, built during an era when cattlemen, railroad travelers, businessmen, soldiers, and strangers passed through the city carrying money, secrets, and sometimes violence. Its lobby still carries the beauty of the Old West: polished wood, elegant staircases, stained glass, and hallways lined with doors that seem to watch every guest who walks past them. But beneath that beauty is the legend of Rosie according to the story. Rosie was a newlywed bride who followed her husband from their honeymoon room after he disappeared into the hotel bar. She allegedly found him with another woman, followed them upstairs, and killed them before returning to the bridal suite and ending her own life. No verified historical record has been uncovered proving the tragedy occurred, but legends do not always survive because they are factual. Sometimes they survive because a building keeps behaving as though something terrible happened there. Guests have described sudden dread in certain corridors. Employees have reported crying and laughter coming from empty rooms. Some visitors say they have seen a woman in a blue dress moving through the hallway before vanishing near room 444. The most disturbing part of the Plains Hotel is not the story of Rosie. It is the suggestion that the hotel may contain more than one presence. Reports describe a woman in a red dress appearing on the second floor and a man in formal clothing moving through areas where no guest should be standing. The hotel seems to repeat fragments of a nightmare. Laughter behind a locked door, a shadow crossing the far end of a hallway. The soft impression of footsteps stopping outside a room and remaining there without knocking. Imagine waking at 3 in the morning and hearing a woman quietly crying on the other side of your door. You wait, you listen, the crying stops. Then the doorknob turns slowly, but the lock holds for several seconds. Nothing moves. Finally, a woman begins laughing, not in the hallway, but inside your room, directly beside the bed. The Plains Hotel has never offered proof of demons, But some guests have described the building as though its hallways possess an intelligence of their own, feeding on betrayal, jealousy, and grief. Perhaps Rosie never existed. Perhaps the hotel created her, because the thing inside its walls needed a face.
The Occidental Hotel in Buffalo, Wyoming. The Occidental Hotel has stood in Buffalo since 1880, carrying the weight of frontier history in every creaking floorboard and antique doorway. Famous travelers, outlaws, politicians, and drifters passed through its rooms during the violent expansion of the American West. The saloon still looks like a place where the past could sit down beside you without introducing itself. Its polished bar, embossed ceiling, old furniture, and narrow stairways do not feel like decorations. They feel like evidence. The hotel's most famous spirit is Emily, a young girl said to have died of cholera during the early 20th century. Guests have reported seeing a thin, childlike figure in a white dress, hearing laughter in empty upstairs hallways, and feeling a small hand tug at their clothing or tap them gently on the shoulder. Some visitors leave letters and stuffed animals near the rooms associated with her. But Emily may not be the only thing walking through the Occidental. She may simply be the presence that people are most willing to name. Employees have reported bottles moving unexpectedly, corks popping from wine bottles, glasses breaking without explanation, and an unattended piano key sounding in an empty lobby. One staff member described hearing her own name called from the saloon when nobody was inside. Guests have reported smelling perfume in their room before feeling the mattress sink between them, as though an invisible person had slowly climbed into bed and settled beneath the blankets. That is where the Occidental becomes more frightening than a simple ghost story. A mischievous child spirit is unsettling. But something that enters a bed is intimate. It wants closeness. It wants warmth. It wants to feel the breathing of the living. Picture yourself lying awake in one of the old rooms while the building settles around you. A floorboard creaks. The blankets shift slightly near your legs. The mattress lowers beside you. Then something presses its weight against your back and exhales a long, exhausted breath against your neck. You do not turn around. You already know that whatever climbed into the bed is not Emily. And it has been waiting a very long time for someone too frightened to move. Next, the Irma Hotel in Cody, Wyoming. Buffalo Bill Cody built the Irma Hotel in 1902 and named it after his daughter. During the day, the building feels like a preserved piece of frontier history. Stone walls, old photographs, heavy wooden furniture, a famous cherrywood bar, and hallways shaped by more than a century of footsteps. But after the dining room empties and the late-night voices fade, the older sections of the Irma seem to change. Room 35 has earned the strongest paranormal reputation. Guests have reported faucets turning on and off by themselves, personal items moving during the night, and artwork falling from walls in ways that do not seem accidental.
Some have described seeing a military figure or hearing movement outside the room when the hallway is empty. Historical research later connected Room 35 to a strange 1912 incident involving Frank Cunningham, a former soldier who reportedly hallucinated and fired shots inside the room. Whether the apparition is connected to that event remains unknown. But the overlap between documented history and reported sightings has given the room a darkness that does not vanish when the lights come on. The Irma's other stories are quieter, but no less disturbing. Visitors and employees have described footsteps pacing through hallways, knocking inside the walls, a rocking chair moving in room 16, and the impression of a shadowy figure slipping into and out of an old photograph. Some employees have reported seeing a man resembling Buffalo Bill Cody moving through the building or hearing the metallic sound of spurs when nobody is standing near the bar. Most stories describe the Irma spirits as friendly, but friendliness can be deceptive when it comes from something that refuses to leave. Imagine entering room 35 after midnight and finding the sink running. You turn the faucet off. A few minutes later, it starts again. Then the second faucet turns on. Then the third. You reach for the lamp, but before your fingers touch the switch, you hear boots walking slowly across the floor behind you. A sword scrapes faintly against a chair. You look into the mirror and see only the lower half of a uniformed figure standing inches from your back. The Irma may not be possessed by something evil, but its dead do not appear to understand that their night ended more than a century ago. Finally, the Old Faithful Inn in the Yellowstone National Park. Old Faithful Inn rises beside the geyser basin like something built from the bones of an ancient forest. Constructed during the winter of 1903-1904. The massive log structure contains towering balconies, a stone fireplace, dim wooden corridors, and a crow's nest high above the lobby. Outside, steam drifts across the ground from Yellowstone's thermal landscape. At night, the mist crawls between the trees and curls against the windows as though the earth itself is breathing. The inn's most famous ghost story is the Headless Bride, a woman in a white dress said to descend from the crow's nest carrying her severed head beneath her arm. The legend is terrifying. It is also not a verified murder. A former bell captain admitted that he created the story after visitors repeatedly demanded a ghost tale. But the truth behind the legend may be more unsettling than the legend itself. He said the idea came after hearing someone running through the hallway when the inn was nearly empty and the doors were locked. Other Old Faithful Inn accounts remain separate from the invented bride. A woman staying near room 2 reportedly woke in terror after seeing a figure dressed in 1890s clothing standing at the foot of the bed. Her husband later showed deep marks on his shoulder where she had grabbed him in panic. A bellman reported watching a door open and close by itself. An employee described a hallway fire extinguisher lifting unnaturally from its hook before slowly lowering again. These stories are not proof of the supernatural, but they are the reason the inn becomes so frightening after midnight. Perhaps the headless bride was invented. Perhaps something inside the old faithful inn enjoyed the attention and decided to wear the story as a mask. Imagine standing in the lobby after the last footsteps have faded. Far above you, the crow's nest is dark. Then you hear a woman humming softly from the rafters. A white shape appears near the railing. It does not have a face. It does not need one. The floorboards remain completely silent as it begins descending the staircase. Outside, the geyser erupts into the night. Inside, the thing in the wedding dress reaches the bottom step and whispers your name.
Thank you for your continued support. Please subscribe, like, and share. Your support helps motivate us to keep bringing you more true haunted stories, terrifying legends, and chilling paranormal mysteries.